Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening Property Rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. And as it's Monday, of course, I have Edwin on. Hi, Edwin.
Monsignor Martin, how are you?
Well, Sir Edwin, or should it be Saint Edwin? I think we probably elevated you to sainthood a couple of weeks ago because of all the sage advice that you were giving to people, and people still rave about it, I tell you.
Look, I have been getting a lot of people reaching out on Twitter, and the latest have been first-time buyers that are looking at getting into the market and just wanting me to post a little bit more as to what they can do and how they get into the market. Around Sydney, it's getting harder, obviously, to buy homes, but it's getting scary, but not as scary as the numbers that you and John Adams were talking about last week, Martin. What's that all about?
Well, yes, we just totted up the amount of federal and state debt that's been notched up since the virus started, so just over a year ago. It's more than, close to $1 trillion extra, right? Which has gone straight to the bottom line of the states and federal. And of course, the question we've got to ask ourselves is, what have we got for that $1 trillion? And, what have we got for it? A lot of it was tactical. A lot of it was to support the banks. Not a lot of it has gone into strategic investments for the future of Australia, unfortunately. That's a big problem.
And I've been reading the retail sector is going to be in a lot of strife as well, because a lot of the retail purchasing is online now. And there's going to be a lot of more pain to come for retailers, particularly when they're paying hefty amounts of rent for space. The bigger companies, your Woolworths, your Coles, your Kmarts, and everybody else, almost gets a free ride because they're your anchor tenants in these shopping centres, and all the other smaller tenancies have to pay through the nose, and they're not making it, particularly if they're not online. So, there's a lot of stuff out there, Martin. There are a lot of numbers, but the number that scares me is the number 13, Martin. That's the number that really scares me.
The number 13, the one that's missing on most lifts, have you noticed?
Yes, number 13 in American lifts, yes, that's the number that scares me. 1 + 3 is 4, the death in the Asian community, but the baker's dozen. People are probably going to say, well, why are you scared of the baker's dozen? They give you an extra loaf of bread or an extra slice, in the baker's dozen. Well, it's just a scary number. So I know you and John Adams talked about the $1 trillion debt. I'm scared of the number 13.
Okay, well, we'll frame that one and we'll put it up somewhere, right?
Instead of scary numbers, the numbers of the people are the bids that people are throwing at auctions, the crazy bids that people are throwing at auctions because the auctioneer asks them to throw it in, and they lift up the paddle and they throw it in. There's some scary numbers out there. Just because they ask for a $50,000 bid or even some cases a $100,000 bid, and just offer them 5. It's still higher than the previous one, and even if they don't accept it, you just go on. But there's always got to be somebody that's going to throw that extra 50, that extra 100. Emotions just are running hot. So there's scary numbers at auctions, Martin.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll give you another scary number, and that is $90,000 is the amount that the average bank of mum and dad is lending to a first-time buyer to get into the market. 60% of first-time buyers are actually using the bank of mum and dad, and the bank of mum and dad is in the top 10 lenders in Australia. That's all data which was published by myself indirectly. In fact, it was Tarek who published it last week, artnews.com. Now the ABC have picked it up, and in fact, I did a live interview today, and it's on the ABC News website, and it'll be on the ABC News tonight. Everyone's now woken up to the fact that this bank of mum and dad gig might be okay, but there's a few risks attached to it.
Well, there are, and remember last time around there was when things started unfolding a little bit, and there were a lot of mortgages that were cross collateralized because of that. And people were in a bit of trouble. Look, we don't see a lot of that happening at the moment, out there. But look, I have come across some purchases that are divorce related, or in a particular case where a third-tier lender, a mezzanine lender, has stepped in and is basically told the owner of the property to in the building game to sell. I've come across another one today in a similar situation where a builder / engineer is in a bit of strife with his business, and they have to liquidate, and have to liquidate quickly. And the problem is when all these mortgages, all these loans are cross collateralized with family homes, and that has to be unraveled, and the pain that they go through, and the lawyers on the other side that are acting for the party that are basically forcing the sales. It's not like they're charging $350 an hour. They just hit them with $4,000 legal bills every day, that these transactions take longer to get across the line.
Absolutely. Well, it's easy. I always think that the only people who win in that situation are the lawyers. They always seem to win, whatever the case, whichever way it goes, they seem to always win.
Yeah, liquidators. Look, even the ATO is not a secure creditor, Martin, and a lot of people don't realise that the ATO is not a secure creditor when it comes to liquidations, but the liquidators are, and lawyers and liquidators get paid out, and everybody else stands in line as if they're secured creditors, and if you're not a secured creditor, then you stand in line, and then you can whistle Dixie if there's anything, if there's nothing left in the pie.
I can't whistle. Well, I can whistle, but not Dixie. I'll tell you another interesting number. The Westpac results came out today, and of course they celebrated a significant profit increase relative to last time. But there were a couple of really interesting things hidden in those numbers, and the one that really caught my eye was, in fact, they've increased their provisioning for 90-day plus mortgage delinquencies. Whilst overall delinquencies were down, and the bad debt allowance was down, the 90-day plus mortgage delinquency is up. That's, I think, a very significant number.
Yeah, it is interesting, and we said that there was going to be a lot of different things that were going to be playing out post the end of March, and look, it's still early days. The listing numbers are still down by in regards to both apartments and homes. But my view on apartments, they're just being drip-fed into the market. Homes are another kettle of fish, but it is interesting to see the dynamics and what's playing out there. And look, people, I guess, things get scary out there, and we said earlier on, the numbers are getting scary with regard to home prices, with regard to what people are throwing into with respect to bids at auctions, and how the emotion runs rampant and so forth. But you can still purchase, you can still put some numbers together, you can still do your due diligence and get all the numbers that you feel are right, and you can still try and secure property. And look, we've secured 2 this week, or over the last, since we spoke last, prior to auction, Martin. And again, and these are in pockets that are relatively warm to hot markets, and there is high demand. And I know for a fact that should they go to auction, or should they've gone to auction, I should say, we would have, our clients would have paid an extra 10, who knows, even 15% more on the day, because of the emotion that runs rapid. So that should be another scary number. So to our viewers and listeners, I'll say that there are ways to try and get around it, and if you don't get it, like you really got to hold back, and you really got to stay sober and look a little bit further afield with regards to where you want to enter the market, how you want to enter the market, and there are many options there available that for people that have yet to explore, man.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Edwin. And, getting caught up in the momentum on auction is always fraught with issues, as we discussed in previous shows. And if you do the work beforehand and you know what the value of the property actually is, it gives you a good platform to negotiate. And I agree. I'm seeing it in my one-to-one conversations too, that people have actually been able to get some really good deals at the moment by just getting more informed and then using that information to basically force the issue. And it amazes me that there are lots of sellers who are actually still comfortable to do that and just close the deal because they want the deal closed and quick.
Yes, and look, and without going into too much detail, we'll move on to the different topics. The main topic that we're going to be talking about today is the forgotten people, and that is the forgotten side of real estate, which is the rental market or the tenants. We'll talk a little bit more in detail there, but just to close off on what we're talking about, auctions. There are ways that you can present an offer to make it more attractive to the vendors to accept your offer as opposed to wait for that little bit extra or more or the unknown as to what would happen on the day. And you use a little bit of fear, by communicating to the agent that valuations may not necessarily come in, and although people may buy, the val may not come in, and then they may not settle, and things like there are different strategies that one can adopt, one can use. But look, another conversation for another day. And to the people that have reached out, that listen to these podcasts, these videos, and watch us, it's don't give up. Just stay frosty, stay sober, and just keep on at it. And the more you research, the more you do, the more you get out, the more efficient you become at putting forth those offers. And the other thing that you can share is put them in writing, and put them in detail so that they can be presented to the vendors.
Yeah, and as I say, when there's always going to be more property, it's not like there's no property out there. Now let's talk about
the numbers that get sold on over the weekend. They're being replaced. So it's not like there isn't. It's just a question of when people will release more numbers in order to quench this heat a little bit, to bring the temperature down a little bit more, so that people can have more choice. As obviously with more choice, things become stabilized a little bit more. But it's just wait and see.
Well, I'm going to be talking about that tomorrow in my live stream. I've got the latest survey data up to the end of April, and one of the things I'll be touching on is the question of supply and demand. There is more people signalling they're likely to sell ahead. And interestingly, rental stress and mortgage stress both went up in the month. But I'm seeing real pain and real difficulty in the rental sector, Edwin. It really is pretty shocking. Quite a few people getting notice served to get out, served with big rental increases that they can't actually deal with, and realization that those rental holidays were holidays not actually just forgiven, right? So they've still got arrears that they didn't realize that they had.
That's right, and the other alarming thing from my side of the fence also, Martin, is the fact, as I've been talking to a lot of property managers, is the reluctance of a, not all, but I would say about 30% of landlords, property owners, the reluctance to bring the properties up to date. Two offices, one office that George from that you've had on your show mentioned in one of his clients, they had to issue 300 notices to 300 tenancies properties to bring the smoke alarm compliance up to date. 300 properties without compliant smoke alarms that this property management company in Newcastle had. That's a hell of a lot of properties out there with dysfunctional or non-functioning smoke alarms. And I was talking to another agent today, and he's only got a small rent roll of about 100 or so, but he just issued 40 work orders to bring the because he just realised that 40 or so of his properties, the the smoke alarm's uncompliant or non-functioning. That is alarming. That is really, really alarming. And the reluctance, and a lot of it comes from the reluctance of the owners to maintain and to upkeep the properties. That's just one of the issues. There are obviously, as you know, there's other issues with regards to mold, asbestos, and all those. And a lot of people seem to forget that a lot of the properties closer to the city, closer to the, particularly around the inner west, these homes are 120, 150 years old, and they've been, and a lot of them have been maintained, but a lot haven't been looked after over the last 20, 30 years. And because of the shortage of homes for rent, whether it be terraces or anything with a bit of space, with a bit of land, with a bit of a courtyard, the shortage, it's just means that the owners are more reluctant to maintain them, which is, it's mind-boggling, Martin, and it's really disappointing that owners would act this way.
Yeah, and I guess there's a couple of observations there. Firstly, many property investors haven't got the rental stream they thought they were going to get for the property. My analysis of net rental yield is that it's shockingly low. So they don't feel they've got free cash to spend on this stuff. But they do have both a moral and a legal obligation to provide property that's up to scratch, don't they?
Well, that's right, and the new regulations that came in and last year, March 26th of last year, it's just a matter of time, that fair trading will get out there and start inspecting a lot of these files. But I think we're going to see, once again, your makeshift granny flats in dodgy granny flats in your out west, particularly with the in garages that have been converted into granny flats and so forth. Look, I don't mind a granny flat as long as you build it right. Some 2-bedroom granny flats, internal, you can get internal spaces. I've seen them of 65 square meters internal, which is rather comfortable. But more importantly is that they get a bit of land to have pets. The occupants can have pets, or they can have for the kids to run around. The further you go out west, obviously the blocks of land become bigger, and you're able to divide the block so that you can both tenancies can share a bit of space, a bit of fresh air. But some of the stuff that I've seen over the years are just mind-boggling, and unfortunately, I feel that we're going to see that again in some parts where the market has just absolutely skyrocketed with regards to rental values. I'm now talking to property managers that are talking to the tenants that are single parents, or families that are reliant on assistance, and where they were renting properties for anywhere between $260 to $350 a week. Now they've got to look at properties in the same area for $500 because those investments have now been sold, and the properties have been, what I say, cleaned up a little bit, and now they're put back on the rental market from $360 to $500, and they're getting 15, 20, 30 groups attending the open homes for those rentals at the higher prices. So my question is where are those families moving to? How are they going to? How much further out are they going to be pushed? And this is where the government should really pay closer attention to, Martin, because I watched your video today of the local, state, and federal government passing the buck and playing pass the parcel. Nobody wants to take control or wants to take responsibility for what's happening with housing the Australian citizens.
No, it is a very concerning situation. I agree with you. Again, seeing it in my data that some less well-heeled households who rely on rented property are finding it really, really hard to find anything now. You can go further out, but then, of course, you've got further to travel, and those travel costs mount up. There have been several reports recently published which just highlights that people at the bottom of the income scale or on support are not able to find any property anywhere in, for example, the Sydney area at a price that's affordable. So we have a massive affordability question. And this is a subset of a much bigger question, which is, who's actually responsible for the stupid housing prices that we have, right? And that's where we come back to Pass the Parcel, which is the show I made today, because of course Michael Sooker at the federal levels blaming the states. One of the New South Wales planning ministers, Rob Stokes, said no, it's more to do with interest rates. Of course the Reserve Bank said nothing to do with us, we don't worry about house prices. APRA said the same. So everyone is doing this wonderful trick of saying it's nothing to do with me, it's somebody else over there. And the net result is that nobody is really thinking in joint up terms as to what needs to be done and how to solve this. Everyone's just throwing little pieces of the solution and frankly creating more significantly worse problems like the first time incentives and home builder, those sorts of things. I wish we could get some joined up thinking here and actually put clear accountability to home prices. But no, nobody's going to take that one. The reason is, of course, that everybody knows that's a really difficult thing to get caught with. And of course, in the political cycle, the last thing you want to do is to be made accountable for anything.
Yeah, that's right. And it's shameful, Martin. I wrote an article about 15 years ago, and it was reported in I think it was API, one of those investment property investment magazines. They used to call me to write some articles on, and I did a breakdown of what it costs to build a new dwelling post the purchase of the land, and how much of it was taxes and levies that developers incurred, and then I spoke about the incentives that governments have been throwing at first home buyers, the grants and everything else since I can remember, and and all those incentives do is just increase the value of the property. But if they really wanted to attack the issue at hand in terms of property prices for first home buyers, people wanting to go back into a ownership, or have a sustainable rental approach to things with regards to the people that are needing a home, not to be put into a 2-bedroom apartment when they've got 3 kids or 4 kids and everything else. But the government should be seriously looking at cutting down the taxes and the levies that are charged to developers, one, and secondly, in unison, put about some serious infrastructure where it's needed, not just where their mates live, or in the areas where the political funders have developments going on. So that's always been my bugbear, Martin. I've always had a heart for being passionate about looking after the tenancy side of things and the renters, and how they it's a forgotten people for the governments, unfortunately, state or federal.
Yeah, unfortunately that is true, and they don't really have much of a voice. Their vote doesn't seem to be worth as much as some other sectors of the community, and the mainstream story of get rich quick, buy more property, we'll help you. ScoMo saying last time around, prices will go higher. That's all addressed at a particular segment of the population who they're supporting and who they bank on in terms of the votes next time around. But we've got this massive underclass of people who are frankly pretty silent and are really struggling at the moment. And that's what I get cross about, because there's no joined up thinking here. There's no understanding of the community requirements and the community needs. And indeed, I wish that we would just stand back and think about, I keep asking the question, what's society for? Well, society should be for everybody, not just for those who actually own property and can vote.
And particularly for those that can do that and are strategically located in the seats that's going to give them the power in state or federal government. We could talk till the cows come home, no doubt about that. And but look, I thought that we talk a little bit more about it today and discuss that, and this whole thing of the government's view of the increase in the value of property that's going to make people spend, and the economy is going to continue to ramp up, and we're going to get out of all this and that. I mean, as you and I discussed, Martin, one thing is the so-called equity in the property, but are people going to be really spending that in the way that the government believe or think that they're going to be spending when things are also getting more and more expensive and incomes don't go up, and you're getting less for your dollar when you're going out and buy things. So inflation's starting to kick in now, and people are going to start feeling the pain. So it's a hold your breath moment, Martin, as to where things are going to go.
Yeah, well, I'm holding my breath, metaphorically at least. I won't hold it practically because I'll stop speaking, and that will make a pretty poor show. but no, there are some very big questions here, and remember that Frydenberg over the last week said, well, we now need to be shooting for unemployment with a 4 in front of it rather than the 5 before we actually start trying to deal with the debt. That basically is putting everything into a longer cycle. And what that means is that we're going to have this weird period where probably the budget that's coming up just over a week will actually be quite expansionary again. We'll see. But at some point, the other side of the election, I just wonder whether we're going to start then tightening the taps again. And, if that's the case, at a time when, as you say, some people are really struggling with the pressures of cost of living, and I see it in my data again. I don't think we're out of the woods yet, and of course we've still got India and the issue of the virus there, and the potential impact if that were to get to come back here. A third wave is not completely beyond the pale yet, so there's a few things to think about. But I did notice one thing, and that's you've mentioned it as well, I think, Edwin, recently, and that there's more people from US looking at Australia and thinking, oh, maybe we should plan to come and live here in Oz.
Well, like the WeChat chatterers, as I posted on Twitter, Martin, the WeChat chatterers are the groups that we monitor over in the States, and they're talking now about the price of firearms going up by almost 40%. That's a chatter right there, and of all things, there's not a lot of chatter as to property prices in the US or where the groups are that we monitor. Anyway, but most of the chatter is about firearms. So as I keep on saying, with all this chatter abroad, and again, how at the end of these conversations. It comes back to how they view Australia, and it's rather interesting. It's putting us in a very, very good, in a very, very attractive position. One of the things that I've been discussing with our groups is the unknown, and maybe one of our followers will know as to how many PR permanent residencies have already been granted to people that are overseas that have been wanting to come. I can't get the data on that or find out, but I know that a lot have applied because of our connections with the migration lawyers and agencies. So that would be interesting to see, because they're going to be coming in and they're going to be buying freestanding homes again. And you know what? These people are going to be buying. They're not going to be necessarily buying things close to the city, because over there where they are in the many states of America, they also they're comfortable to travel an hour and 15 minutes to go to work.
Okay, well, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I think it's very interesting in the context of recent discussions from Dutton and from one of the secretaries, basically amping up the talk of the risk of war is going up, and China is right at the center of it. I have to say I'm a bit sceptical of all of this. This seems to be a classic case of misdirection, right? So we're not doing very well locally. We've got all of the issues in Canberra at the moment. The economy, well, who knows? But so what we're going to do is we're going to amp up the conversation about conflict, and we're going to put China right in the middle of the crosshairs. I think that's a major mistake, and I think it's misdirecting and mis-signalling. But it does seem to be a bit flavour of the month at the moment, doesn't it?
Well, look, you've got to look at it, from what they're really saying over in China, without going into too much detail. They've just basically said it'll be in our time, where we choose, and when we choose, where we choose, and how we choose. So they're in a position of strength. And let's face it, we're still relying on a lot of the material, even for building and construction. I mean, the supply chains are in a mess. The developers that I talk to are frantically changing, looking for ways to do things. So it's going to be interesting how all that plays out. But to continue to scare the local people, obviously it's a wrong tact. But look, I'm not a politician. I don't intend to be. I'm trying to keep my sainthood without swearing too much now, Martin. And just trying to make sense of where this property market's going, where the values are going, how they're going, and how we can assist people to enter the market by way of buying or looking at rentals.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's always plenty of conversations to be had, and as with these weekly rants, we try to make a few hopeful suggestions and thoughts as to help people along the journey, and we've done it again. So well done, Edwin. Thank you very much for that. Your sainthood is intact, and your halo is duly polished. So,
look, it's. But I did want to. I don't want to go out. I did make a big statement last week with regards to, my love of the, French fries, and I just want to prove a point. These now, when I was younger, I mean, this weighed a lot more. Now we're gonna do the test, Martin. So see how it's nicely sealed and nice and fat, and you would think that it's full of French fries, right? Now we're going to open the pack.
Well, you have plenty of hot air there.
I'm getting now, Martin. What's that all about?
That is called deflation, right? So, and
what the hell?
Yeah, and interestingly, I was reading an article today written by somebody in the US who's gone around and looked at all of the packaging in the US.
I saw that.
And they've said exactly the same thing, right? Everything's got smaller, everything has got more air in it, and everything's got actually less stuff. So, I mean, this is the backdoor issue relating to inflation, right? So you can't compare a packet of chips today with a packet of chips from 5 years ago, because the one today, it might look the same, but it's got much more air, it's got much less content. And I guess if you look carefully, you'll probably even find that the mix of ingredients has changed too.
Yeah, 175 grams. I think from memory, it used to be 200 not too long ago. But our followers will tell us. I'm sure they're very smart and astute, and they'll tell us if I'm wrong or right.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid that's right, and I can see it again and again in the shops. Everything gets slightly smaller. And of course, the excuse is it's all about shelf size. No. It's all about making more money, isn't it?
Anyway, Martin, look, it's always fun, but again, it's just one of those things that I know that a lot of a number of different mainstream outlets watch our shows, and we're staying ahead of the curve with a lot of things, and with what's happening out there. But with regards to people looking into going back to the questions that I've been asked over the last week, how does a first-home buyer enter the market? And people have been reaching out on Twitter, and that is sometimes, guys, you've got to look at a little bit further afield. I know your desired location, and let's face it, if you continue to stay in that arena where you already feel that you've been priced out, and you've just got to detach yourself and look a little bit further afield before you really get priced out of the suburbs that are still close to where your ideal place is. And that's just another point, another tip, Martin, that people can look at, because the more you play in that arena where you're going to be frustrated and you feel that you're being priced out, and you continue to beat your head against that brick wall, and particularly because of the antics of the selling agents as well. Just look a little bit further afield, and you'll find that you get a little bit more bang for your buck. You get a bit more, bigger parcel of land, and you'll be able to make the adjustments over time, and it won't be as bad as what you may think it is.
Great advice. In fact, I did a show a couple of days ago on Thomastown, which is in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. It's sort of out towards the bush. Somebody suggested I do that because the prices there are, 200k lower than just a few suburbs away. And that's a classic example. It's slightly further out. It doesn't have quite the amenities that some others, but the plots are bigger. And in fact, the lifestyle there is quite attractive. So again, it's break the mold. Don't necessarily just assume that the postcode that you're thinking about is the only one. Look around, look in a few other areas. And as you say, go out slightly further, because quite often by going out slightly further, you then get a much larger plot, better value, and it has longer term prospects. So do the work.
And also, look, if you, in regard to distance, when you measure from the CBD, say Sydney CBD, and you measure out north, when you compare the distance between north and south, look, you still get in terms of value for money. The Shire, God's country, Martin. God's country, the Shire. You get. I think you get a lot more bang for your buck there than what you do in some parts in the northern suburbs, and you still you travel the same gain into the city. So that you just got to realign, readjust your the view of things if you're really desperately wanting to get in, and that's can leave our viewers with that, and hopefully that helps all the inquiry that I've been receiving on Twitter as to how to enter the market as a first-time buyer.
Yeah, well, Edwin, thank you for that, and appreciate your time once again. You've got to go and eat those chips now before they go stale.
Well, now it's past my time, Matt. I'm on a rigorous diet at the moment.
Okay.
So
so it's for experimental purposes only, then.
But I will enjoy them tomorrow around lunchtime.
All right. Okay, Edwin, I appreciate your time, and we'll do it all again next week, eh?
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
See ya. Take care.